The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
Hey, folks, once again, the Short Time Wrestling Podcast here. Jason Bryant here with you, multiple-time award-winning broadcaster, journalist, and wrestling announcer. Do a lot of things in the sport of wrestling, historical and present tense, like this show here. Today, we'll be talking with Paul Keysaw. He is the head wrestling coach at Fresno City College. The Rams just won their 8th California Community College State Championship in the last 13 years, 3rd in a row, 6th in the last 9 years. Coach Keysaw was an NCAA champion at CSU Bakersfield as an athlete, has been out there 13 years in California doing some pretty cool things in a very competitive league. We've had Donnie Gary out on the show before talking about it. Coach Keysaw is making another appearance. We've also had Dave Pacheco up from Sac City on the program. We've mentioned all three of those guys on the program. But it's something the wrestling community kind of overlooks sometimes. So this is a look into the most unique wrestling league as they compete in the fall. We'll discuss that. We'll also talk about other things in regards to how possibly a fall schedule, maybe for the rest of wrestling, might work better than pushing it back into the spring. Interesting topics to be had. So if this is your first time listening, welcome to the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. If you like this episode, you like what you hear, I encourage you go to matttalkonline.com/listen. That is where you can pick up a myriad of ways to subscribe to this show, including specific apps for iOS and Android platforms. Of course, we're everywhere you can find good podcasts, except for Caldor and Kmart. I don't think those two either exist anymore, but that's where we're at. So, without further ado, you'll also get bad jokes here at the end of these things. Paul Keysaw, Fresno City College. Let's roll on Short Time, episode 484. Yeah, been doing it a long time. And now on the show, we welcome back Fresno City College head wrestling coach Paul Keysaw as the Rams. That is the FCC, and we're not talking Federal Communications Commission. This is the Fresno City College Rams. Won their 3rd straight California Community College State Championship and 6th in the last 9 years. And of those 3 years you didn't win, Coach, you were 2nd. So the last 9 years, your squad's been 1st or 2nd in the California Community College State Championships. That's pretty close to dynasty type of status there.
We've had a good run for sure. We've had a lot of good kids come through the program, and they've definitely made me look good for the last 9 years for sure.
Well, when you look at the dynamic of junior college wrestling, whether it be at the NJCAA or the California Community College level, you got 2 years, maybe 3, depending on how people take their classes and such. You can't come in with like a stout recruiting class and then run shop for 4 or 5 years. I mean, you've constantly got the turnover, and how do you as a coach maintain that success with wrestling when you have such a turnover each year?
This is my 13th year at City College, and I feel like past successes are really starting to help me out now. I think now I've had some coaches who have reached out to me in recent years because they've seen the successes of not just kids who have wrestled for me, but the kids who have gone on after they've wrestled for me. Those are the ones that have really, I think, kind of helped a little bit, and also helped local coaches realize that if you send a kid here, he's going to have a chance, not only to do great in wrestling, but have a chance and an opportunity to go somewhere else and compete and graduate from college. And that's really, I think, the big goal these days is to try to graduate from college.
Yeah, in some situations, you'll have guys that leave the state of California. They'll go Division I, they'll go Division II, they'll go to a different place. Like your 74-pounder, he went out Division I out east, ended up coming back, and gets that fresh start and whatnot. So getting guys college degrees. Sometimes people look at junior college in a negative stance, but in California, it's not just from a wrestling standpoint. It's a way of life for a lot of people. They go 2 years, they may end up going to UCLA or Berkeley or something like that, but they go the junior college route first because for a lot of them, it's more affordable.
You know what, Jason? You're absolutely right, and it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And here in the state of California, you can start anywhere, your local junior college, and end up, like you say, at UCLA. I got a kid right now, he's getting recruited to NYU. And I mean, he never even took the SAT in high school. So, these opportunities are there for kids if you're willing to work and put your time in and, build a platform. The sky's the limit for these kids. And really what people don't understand is it opens up more doors for kids if you do take the junior college route and you're willing to put that time in and get better, and not only athletically, but academically too. There's plenty of opportunities for you. And, when you come out of a junior college, you're already a proven commodity to college coaches. You've already competed, athletically for a couple of years, but academically, you're a proven commodity. These days, back when I wrestled, you could fail out of college and no one really cared. There's another scholarship next year, but, these days with the APA scores and, all the things that these guys are held accountable to, they need kids who are going to come and be successful. They can't afford to miss on kids. So, junior college kids are becoming a really good product for these guys. So, good time.
Where I've seen a lot of the especially the California junior college influence at the next level has been really in the Division II and the NAI, where there are scholarships, so they are getting money to compete. A lot of these small schools, and Dave Pacheco up at Sac City has also sent a slew of guys to the Dakotas. Whether he was mad at them, I don't know why, but they go from California to the central northern plains. But what are some of your better success stories in pushing guys not just to the Division I level? Ali Nazer had a career there at Arizona State, but at the NAI Division II level that you really saw your athletes thrive and get that degree where they may have had a pretty rough upbringing.
I just got off the phone with the Dickinson State coach today, was talking to him. We had Angel Ole graduate from there, and we've had Stephen or Keysaw graduate from there. I have a kid right now, Casey Jones, who's there. I've had kids all over, Doan. We have Kevin Corbett, who wrestled for me, who is now a women's coach in Arkansas at Lyon College. Arsen Alexanian started a wrestling program out here in California called Life Pacific, and his assistant coach is Brady Brisarno, and both of those guys wrestled for me. They're both state champs. They were both OWs. They both went on and wrestled at the 4-year level. I have tons. Arnolfo Ole just graduated from Wartburg University. Josue Solis just graduated from Doan. I can go on. I get so excited talking about that. That's what changes kids' lives right there, and that's what really makes a difference is those kinds of stories. We just had 4 kids this year who went off and were successful, graduate from the Fresno City College Police Academy, and are actually working for the Fresno Police Department right now. Zane Platt has been working for the Fresno Police Department since 2016. He wrestled for me 2006, 2007, and went to, I don't know if it's Eastern or Western, but one of the Northeastern Oklahoma or Northwestern Oklahoma, one of those, and graduated, wrestled from there, got a degree in biology, and now he's a policeman. You're absolutely right about the Division II and NAIA. That's where a lot of our kids go. They have a lot of success and changing their lives, Jason.
Yeah, so I guess it's not just it's not been Pacheco up at Sac City that's been sending those kids into the Dakotas based on some of the schools you were naming off there. Hey, you go good. They need some more you got to send them to the NAI schools down south if they like the warm climates. That's I'm sure that'll be number one on the list for those who are enjoying a warmer climate. But when we look at again the makeup, we ask this question to every coach every year. In the California community college system is the fall calendar, and you are the only college wrestling going on. The women will pick up in kind of October. So, but for September, most of October, you guys have the wrestling world to yourselves, with the exception of when the World Championships gets pushed into October and things are kind of overlapping. But each year we ask this. What's the general prevailing thought about keeping it in the fall versus maybe aligning it in the wintertime where you can maybe have some more interaction with other junior college programs nationwide?
Well, honestly, my thought on that, Jason, is I'm not sure why everyone else hasn't changed their wrestling season to the fall by now. And really on a serious note, I'm not completely in tune with the Division I's doing, but they've been really looking towards spring and moving towards spring. And And for some of the reasons why, I just don't really understand and don't necessarily agree with. My wrestlers their best semester in college is absolutely in their wrestling season, when they're in wrestling season, and they do best when they're in wrestling season. Coming right into the fall and competing in season, the kids actually kind of like it. We compete almost the same amount of time as, an NAI or Division II. Division I's a little longer. But if you were to ask me that question 10 years ago, I would have probably had a great answer for you as to, how we're trying to align ourselves with the Division I or, the next level. But honestly, I love our fall. I think it's great for wrestling. I think it's great for our athletes. I think it's great for our sport. I see way more of a future in aligning our sport with football and doing more events like a football event rather than, worrying about trying to get away from March Madness. And, I don't know why we want to go into the spring and get into, our international season. I mean, we're starting to have great success there. I just see the capture of the moment in the fall semester. I think it would be great if somebody would really seriously look at that. I think traveling over Christmas break and in January is just horrific for the Midwest. And, we travel to Cerritos, just so everyone has we travel to Cerritos. So for Fresno, it's maybe normally a 4-hour drive, and we have to go over the Grapevine. Well, when we traveled down there, we hit a snowstorm. The Grapevine got closed, and we got diverted, had to go through Tehachapi around the 58. And so it ended up a 7.5-hour bus trip, a normal 4-hour bus trip. So, and we saw snow in Tehachapi when we were going through there. We saw it was sticking on the ground. So it was quite an experience for us. So look, a little sidetrack there, but I really love the fall semester. I really do. And, I think it's great for the sport of wrestling, and the longer I do it, the more and more I enjoy it. And, I know the kids absolutely enjoy a fall semester wrestling season.
How does that work with, now I'm looking at it, you make a point now, is a lot of the winter sports, they're battling for gym time. You're looking for, if you want your arena, but we're looking at how it works out with California. A lot of the schools there, that's also a very fertile recruiting ground for college football, junior colleges, and things of that nature. I know several players from California have gone on all over. I mean, several. It's hundreds basically a year that go on. But how do the programs work in the fall when you got that football situation in wrestling? I mean, how people say, oh, we can get the football players to wrestle. Well, that really doesn't happen at the next level. It's a rare occurrence, but you might lose out on a heavyweight here and there, but or across the road down at Fresno State with Hokett going from fullback to heavyweight, or 197. But in terms of the athletic department, you think it strain wise, I mean, scheduling, where is the benefit in your opinion here?
But actually, really for all those reasons. I mean, the only gym time we really fight is we collide sometimes with volleyball. And, in the last couple of years, we actually had an event a couple of years ago where we kind of tag teams of, volleyball went first, we went second, we advertised it. I forget exactly what the little term was they used, but, it was kind of cool to roll in after the volleyball. In junior college, as far as football and scheduling, at least at Fresno City College, we're kind of a big school. So, football has its own kind of training staff, and, the other side, I say wrestling, volleyball, basketball, we kind of have our own training staff. So we don't collide typically too much there, but I just see it way more as an asset. We've never really had an issue with it in our school. I mean, either football's home or we're traveling. And like I say, we don't really have shared facilities, and football's one game a week. Wrestling a couple of duels a week, maybe a tournament every other weekend. I just, I just see it as a way more of a benefit, Jason. I haven't really thought about it a whole lot from an administrative standpoint, but we haven't had much resistance, or even, it's been all positive, at least out here for the community college, and we've been going in the fall since 1982 or 1983.
Let's shift gears to this season because this is a debate, or not a debate. It's really a discussion that we kind of bring up again every time we have a California junior college coach on, whether it be you, whether it be Coach Pacheco, whether it be Donnie Garriott down at Cerritos. But talk about this season. Big time tournament. First time in the league's history that 12 wrestlers placed in the tournament for one team. And, of course, 12 was opened up a couple years ago, were multiple entries at a weight class. Didn't quite set the team scoring record, but, a dominant performance, 9 in the semis, 7 in the finals, 4 champs. I mean, you just put this team's performance in perspective to some of the other teams you've had over the years that have won titles.
We were really good this year.
Well, undefeated in duels, and you win the we're really good this year.
Yeah, we were really good. It was, it was a little difficult team to kind of get a reign of in the beginning of the year and getting everyone trying to get on the same page. We had kids, who, had been off to some universities and come back. We had a lot of kids from a lot of different places, and we had 5 freshmen on the team also. And so it took, midway through the year, I think, before we started to get onto the same page. And, about the beginning of November, we really started clicking and really started wrestling, a little different, more of a collegiate style of wrestling, and really started getting after it. And the one thing this team, they worked really hard, and at the end of the year, they really came together as a team, and, it was fun to be around them. It was a very loose team. That was one thing that's been different about this team than most of the other teams, and maybe that's why they, drove me a little crazy, is they seem to be very relaxed and loose all the time, and I'm not necessarily that way. So, but they were a great team. I mean, all the records you said, each team's like a different child to me. This child was a little crazy in the beginning, but we got her under control, and she was fun to be around.
As we look at the individual performances, champions Isaiah Perez at 133, Daniel Ruiz 149. Is it? Yeah, I asked you this beforehand. I'm going to blank on it. Augustine Garcia at 165, and the aforementioned Abner Romero at 174. Anything? What stood out about these 4 guys that kind of led them to championships this year?
Well, Isaiah was returning. He won it last year. Isaiah had a very successful high school career, and Isaiah, I teased him. He tried not to win it this weekend. He had he had a tough match in the semis, and really had to gut that one out to win. And he didn't really have his best performance in the finals match, but that's just his his skill level. He found a way to win and gutted it out, and it's been fun to watch Isaiah grow up, the last couple of years, and really turn into a fine young man, and really kind of get tough. Being from Pennsylvania, I like that toughness, and he really showed some toughness this year. Daniel Ruiz is the exact opposite. Daniel graduated from high school 4 years ago and went into the Army, and he just got out in April and came and joined the team. So Daniel's a little bit of an older guy, and he's tough. Daniel just kind of had to learn how to wrestle a little bit and learn how to relax. Daniel, he gets a little uptight, but he was fun to coach, being a little older and the Army guy, and everyone kind of looked up to him and teased him for being old. Augustine, we call him Augie. Augie, I don't know what Augie's the Augie that. See, I can't even talk about Augie. He's an amazing athlete, man. He is an amazing athlete. He wrestled in the state tournament like an absolute champion. None of us have ever seen him wrestle like that all year long. My assistant asked him, Augie, how come you didn't wrestle like that all year long? He said, well, because I didn't have to. And so that's Augie in a nutshell. He's got a very bright future ahead of him, a very bright future. And he just absolutely cracks me up. And then you have Mr. Romero. He kind of bounced back from back east, and he got a second life in the sport of wrestling, and he trained very hard and very workmanlike, and kind of flashy out there on the mat, and really enjoys wrestling under the spotlight. And it was good to see him get started back on the right path and use wrestling to do that and have the success. And he worked hard. He worked hard for that success too. And he got headlocked in the first 20 seconds or so. That was close. That could have changed that match big time. But it was fun sitting in their corner in the finals for all of them.
Now, as we look at the dynamics of this team, I mean, you talked about Perez, said he tried to give it away. He only beat his teammate 1-0 in the regional final. So with the dynamic of adding the multiple qualifiers per weight class, the NAI has done that for a while. What has that added for you as a coach the last several years that's been allowed?
Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. I mean, it gives life to a lot of kids in the team. And, I don't know how many wrestling programs you look at. You always have, you're starting 10 in college, it's 10. Well, you always have those 1, 2, maybe 3 guys in the room that, you look at, gosh, on most any other team, those guys are starters. On our team, we just happen to have one of the best kids in the state, and this kid's behind them. So it gives life to those kids. It gives them reason and purpose to stick around to the end of the year. It gives them hope. And both of our second team, I guess if you could say second team guys are going to get scholarships. They're going to get scholarships and opportunities to wrestle after junior college and matriculate. And to me, that's what it's all about, is giving kids opportunities. And these kids have made the most of it, and they've got to move on. And, Fresno City, we were able to fill all 10 weights, but if you can't fill 2 weights, how many times do you look around and you have 2 little guys or 2 big guys on the same team that are either equal or like I said, one's very, very, very good and the other guy is good. He just happens to be in that weight. So it just creates more opportunities for wrestling. And I think it's just another opportunity for wrestling to get outside of the box and try to grow and better the sport. And and that's one thing as I get older, I look at is how can we make wrestling better? I don't want wrestling to die, and we need to grow our sport, and we need to do more things like this 12, and we need to give more kids opportunities, and so I really like that.
Competitively, nothing in a dual meet competition was really close this year. 24-12, I think, was the closest one. You won the state championship handily over the south section there. And what is the makings of a successful team in your mind? Is if for the combination of, is it tournament strength? Is it dual meet strength? Is it how you make up the tournament schedules? Because there's not a whole lot of variance. You hit the same couple tournaments each year, and then you got your dual schedule. But from a coaching aspect, I mean, what's the perfect team for you?
That's a good question. If I wasn't a coach, I would probably talk about how we need to do more dual meets and put a little bit more emphasis on dual meets. I am going to try to next year put my money where my mouth is and cut out a tournament and increase my dual meets and travel a little bit to get some dual meets. I don't know what the perfect team is, Jason. I've been on both sides of a shutout in the dual meet, and I don't really enjoy either side. It's far more better to be on the giveth side than the receiveth side, any day of the week. But, the perfect team, I don't know. We were pretty close this year. We won pretty much everything we entered. It was great. It was fun to be a part of it. I know that ride's going to end soon, and that's just the nature of the beast. I'm really kind of, to be honest, torn between a tournament and a dual meet. I see the value of a dual meet. I see the value of people coming into my gym. I see the value of the non-wrestling fan. And that, again, goes to my push towards the fall semester. I think we have more of a captive audience and can get more of that non-wrestling fan, that casual fan. At the JC State tournament, most people in the gym are friends or family or girlfriends of the people competing. So, I'm old school. I'm an old school PA boy. I love the tournament, that's just where everything has been made. And, but, at the same time, I don't like traveling for a dual meet and and having people not wrestle me and dodging some of the better kids and, not weighing this kid in because we don't want to wrestle this kid because, we don't want to lose our seed in the regional tournament. I've seen both sides of that. And
the same discussions we're having with the Division Ones, we're talking about wrestlers, oh, well, why didn't you wrestle him? I mean, there's been discussions at pretty much everywhere about this.
And, the thing that I'm starting to see value in, Jason, is that dual meet. So when you show up, people actually want to see, Valencia and Hall wrestle. They could give a crap about Arizona State and Pennsylvania. But on the flip side, if we're in California, I mean, people will come out to watch Penn State wrestle just because they went to Penn State, not because they're the number one team in the nation. People will come and watch, colleges that they went to. I really do see the value of that dual meet and making that important and finding a way to somehow make that more important and hold that more accountable.
To circle back to the state championship, and we look at the dynamic of this team score. I mean, it was a comfortable, almost 70 point, I think a 67.5 point spread between you and Sac City for second. After that, Palomar, which had a pretty strong regional tournament, then Cerritos, which has had a really, really strong program the last several years. Mount San Antonio is always pretty good too. But, at what point do you know that you've got this thing locked up? You guys have got 9 in the semis. When you punch 7 through, it's like, all right, pop the champagne.
Yeah, it was definitely after Friday night when we got to Saturday morning. We kind of knew that we had that wrapped up. And I think at that point we were just kind of trying to coach for the kids and having the kids try to do the best they can and compete for them. It was a strange year. I mean, I've had a lot of success and won state titles. I can't really think of a time that we've really dominated like this and have not been so stressed and freaked out and so worried about every takedown and every escape and every stall call. And, this year I actually breathed and it was kind of a good time.
Yeah, and to give the listeners some perspective here, last year was approximately 30 points. Year before, Fresno City and Cerritos, I mean, it was 5 points that the tournament came down to 5 points. Year before, you guys were behind by about 20. Then year before that, 8. I mean, it can be a quick spread. The spread can get out of hand in a hurry in that semifinal round. So I mean, once the kids punch through halfway through, I mean, you say you start coaching for the kids, but from your own heart rate, where does that go? Does that go from the 140s back down to a 120, or are you amping in, with your VO2 max like the entire round?
It throttles down a little bit for sure. It definitely throttles down. The anxiety level goes down and your heart rate goes down, and you can actually hear your heart rate and hear people yelling and screaming, and and that's why I say it was kind of enjoyable. And not to be all amped up and not to be so into the moment. It was fun. Sometimes this coaching stuff is fun. This weekend was definitely one of those moments where I had a good time coaching. It was fun. Of course, when you're winning, of course, it's always fun. But yeah, it was a good time this weekend. I had a good time with the kids.
What is the most rewarding thing to you about coaching this level of wrestling?
I kind of had an epiphany this year. We had a dual meet, and one of my kids hurt his knee, and he dislocated his kneecap. He ended up finishing the match. We didn't win that match, but he finished the match, and I was super proud of him. And so it's all over with, he's in the training room getting taken care of, and, I asked him, hey, Mikey, you have a ride home? And he doesn't have a ride home. And I said, well, I'll give you a ride home. And so everyone leaves the gym and the dual meet's over and the mats are all put away. And, I'm helping Mikey get his clothes on and put his shoe on. And, I give him a ride around the corner to his house. And we get over to his house and he says, Coach, I don't have my keys. I don't have my phone. I don't have my girl's phone. I don't know how I'm going to get in. I said, well, where do you live? Show me. So he shows me. And so I jumped the fence. So I'm 50 this year. I just turned 50. So I jump the fence, and I'm cracking up at myself. I jump the fence, and I get on the other side, and I open up the gate for him, and we get him into his apartment and get him home. And I'm driving home after that, and I just thought to myself, this is what I'm meant to do. I absolutely enjoy being here. I absolutely love coaching this level. I love these kids, and I know that I affect these kids' lives, and I love being here, and I love coaching at this level. And I think California Community College is it's an untapped place of. It's just a great place to coach. I absolutely love it, Jason.
Talk about Louis Ramos here. He's 7th in the state going in based on the rankings, and he comes in and he makes the finals. He ultimately loses in the finals to the top-ranked Josh Brown from Cerritos, but guy that's
Yep.
ranked number 7 in the state coming into the postseason, and he makes a run to the finals. What was it like coaching him all year?
Louis fun to coach. Louis does not talk. Louis doesn't talk. And I mean that. I think I've maybe heard about 5 or 6 sentences from Louis all year long. Louis is just a stud. He shows up every day. He's Perez's workout partner. Louis really started opening up at the end of the year and started coming out of his shell. And I say opening up, college is a different style than high school. Even in junior college, college is a different style than high school. So sometimes getting these kids to do some things a little different than they did in high school is a bit of a challenge. And Louis is a great athlete, and he had some success in high school. So, and 41s is a tough weight class, man. There are some tough kids in that weight class. That was one of the tougher weight classes in the state this year. So, and Louis, he just really started picking it up towards the end of the year. He twisted his ankle a little bit in the beginning of the year, and we had a rough road at Cuesta. We got mollywopped over there a couple of times by a couple of dudes, and that didn't do us any good. But he rebounded, and he works hard, and we just made a few minor adjustments there towards the end, and a lot of those minor adjustments were the way he looked at things. They were more in his brain than they were on the wrestling mat. So, and it didn't hurt that we got a good, kind of a draw, and we got away from Josh. We didn't have to wrestle that guy until the finals. That guy has been our kryptonite all year long. And he's a tough kid, but I was really proud of Louis. His semifinal match, he definitely gutted that one out and beat that kid. That kid had beaten us during the year also. So, that's what's fun about coaching at this level is you get kids like Louis Ramos. Louis is a phenomenal athlete. He's a great wrestler, and he got really kind of coachable towards the end of the year. And not that he wasn't coachable, but he made some changes, and and it really showed at the end. And when the finals wasn't a great match, but he had a wonderful tournament.
When we look at the landscape of California collegiate wrestling, of course, there's the 20-some-odd schools in the junior college division. Cal Baptist is reclassifying from Division II to Division I. You get the new program down at Life Pacific, which you've mentioned, in San Dimas, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so every time I'm going to hear San Dimas, I'm going to think of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, for those of you that grew up in the 80s.
There you go.
Know that reference. And, of course, Fresno State, right down the street. Now, last time we talked, they were just getting their program kicked off. Now they've had a program. Now they're back at it on the mats for the second year. And what have you seen from the wrestling community there locally? Because it's a real, a cradle of wrestling talent there in the Valley there, with what Fresno State and Coach Steiner's been able to bring to the table.
He's made a big push about wrestling in the Valley. I mean, you're starting to see old school Bulldogs coming out and supporting wrestling. You're starting to see wrestling people come out and support wrestling. You're starting to hear a little bit of a vibe about wrestling in the Valley. The dual meets, the home dual meets have been absolutely wonderful. I've been able to go to most all of those dual meets. I missed the Minnesota match. We were competing, but it's been nothing but great for wrestling in the Valley and in California. He's got almost all local guys. They're having some success, and they're doing good things. They're involved in the community, and and what I'm happy about is the community supporting them, both going to the matches and, in the community. There's a good positive vibe about Coach Steiner and about the team and about wrestling. And, we're going to start. Fresno State has not had a graduating class of wrestlers since 2005. This area is starved for wrestling coaches, and it's starved for young people to come into the community and teach and coach wrestling. So, for me, that's what I'm a couple more years, every couple of years, he's going to start turning out these coaches and wrestling people into the community. And California needs that. This area needs that. And you can feel there's a good positive vibe about the program and what's going on. And it's a good time for wrestling in California for sure right now.
You've also got a little bit of a youth movement with some of the recent coaching hires, as guys like John Cerritos, Manny Rivera, Coach Borelli at Stanford. They're not older than me, I can tell you that. And I'm still not in my 40s. And then Jason Welsh up at San Francisco State at the Division II level. Yep. So it's given your wrestlers an opportunity to be coached by guys once they leave the program and they have maybe those Division I, Division II in-state aspirations as there's more of them now. Even you have an NAI option there with Life Pacific. Arizona Christian, in Arizona has also announced they're starting an NAIA program soon. So you've got opportunities to see your wrestlers, not just, you don't have to send them to the Dakotas all the time anymore. And what's it mean to you as a Bakersfield alum, CSU Bakersfield, not Bakersfield College, which is the other wrestling school there, as you've got a couple of them in Bakersfield, like you've got two in Fresno there, but you got that opportunity to stay home and see your kids at the next level.
Oh, it's a wonderful thing. And that's one thing I tell my kids. If you're good enough to stay in California and compete in California, then stay. You don't have to leave. But, there's not room for all of them to stay in California. That's just a great thing. I love to see, the sport growing out here. And, Fresno State's going to make Bakersfield better and going to make Stanford better. And, the West Coast, I would like to see it, get back to the so-called glory days. UCLA came and wrestled in our open tournament. USC has a wrestling club. The state has over 25,000 high school wrestlers. There's room for wrestling to grow out here. This is an untapped potential for anyone who wants to coach high school, junior college. The programs, the one thing people have to do is you kind of have to forge your own road a little bit, but, it's there. The opportunities are there, and there is a youth movement. Women's wrestling this year, California high school, both women's and men's are competing in the same tournament under the same building during the same days on the same mat. So, it's growing. It's making changes.
When it comes to your coaching style, any coaching changes that need to be made in terms of how you teach? Because you got 8 titles in 13 years, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, not a whole lot needs to change from our vantage point, but from you, what do you tweak each year after each title? You've got to improve as a coach, because if you stop learning, you stop being good, right? I don't know if that's a saying or not, but what do you got to keep doing to keep yourself fresh and always learning, even with the level of success you have?
Well, maybe we can talk after this and you can bleep this section out so my assistant doesn't hear it. But, this year, more than any other year in my coaching career, I let my assistant run practice. I let him blow the whistle. I'm a big practice guy. I love going to practice far more than matches or tournaments. And, I've always been the one who always ran practice and was very involved in practice. And, the last couple of years, I've let him do more and more drills and more stuff. And he's really kind of helped me see a different part of wrestling and how to do the same things that I want to do in a different way. He's done the same thing for me through social media. This year we got us sponsored by Adidas. And, my kids are really into that. They like that kind of stuff. They think that's cool to have a shirt that says Adidas on it. And when I grew up, I was just happy to have a shirt. So it's really different these days. And, my assistant has really helped me see the value of social media, how to make social media work for us rather than against us. I've kind of trusted him in some of those things. And even in the practice room and the way we run some of our drills and how we condition. And, I've let him run far more practices than I've ever let any assistant run ever. And lo and behold, we're still successful. We still win. So, it kind of showed me that it's okay to delegate and let some of those things go. And it actually gives me time to do other things. But it was really odd for, in the beginning of the season when Georgie, my assistant's Georgie Moreno, he was the assistant coach of the year. Georgie actually wrestled at Fresno City, wrestled at Fresno State. He's an 8th grade history teacher. And then he comes over after school and comes to practice. Georgie would run practice and I would sit on the opposite wall in the room, and it's amazing the perspective from the opposite side of the room, just sitting on the opposite wall, watching the same things. And I got to do a little more coaching this year and put hands on kids a little bit more and say, you know what, you're not doing this right. You need to do this. And, when you're running practice, you don't really get a chance to do those things. So it was good. And I had my first female wrestler this year in 27 years. I had my first female wrestler, Alyssa Balon. She did everything everyone else did all year long. She went through Hell Friday. She carried people up the stadium and did wheelbarrows. She drilled. She wrestled in a few exhibition matches this year. And she helped me kind of grow and helped me with my vocabulary for sure, Jason. Absolutely helped me with that.
I don't know if I want to go down that road, but Coach Keysaw, in the time we got left, you're probably one of the few people that actually contributed more to the wrestling shirt a day thing that I was doing that one year than any other team outside of the shirts that I had for my alma mater. I think I have like 7 or 8 Fresno City College shirts out of that whole ordeal. So I think
nice.
he sent me a couple of them, and it was like, and then here comes another one. It's like, I can't remember if I sent you some or not. So yeah, they were all different, so they still counted. So I appreciate that. And in terms of, for those who are still just curious about the entire system, the community college system, I guess, what's a quick way you can sum it up as a coach, as an athlete, as a general wrestling fan, to say, you know what, you missed the season this year. Here's the reason you should pay attention to us next fall.
Well, you know what? California Community College is really we're a fall sport. We start competing in September. We have our conference and tournaments just like everybody else. We conclude the week after Thanksgiving is our North and South regions, and that's basically how we break up the state between the North and the South. State tournaments the second weekend after Thanksgiving. And it's extremely competitive. The top, maybe the points don't show this year, but normally the top 3-4 teams in California Community College, and you can pick any sport you want: baseball, football, basketball, volleyball, wrestling. Our top, 3-4 schools, when you get down to the end, are extremely competitive, and they're as good as a top 10 NAIA school, as a top 15 Division II school. I'm not going to say we'll beat those schools, but they're competitive with those. That's about the level of play we get to. So, it's not your upper echelon Division I athletes, but these kids compete and then they get after it, and then it's a good product. At the end of the year, it's a good product, and I can say that for all of our sports, not just wrestling. It's a good product.
That is the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. Thanks to Coach Paul Keysaw of the Fresno City College Rams. Coach, always a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for giving us the insight on the league. And we went through the whole episode, and only now we're going to mention Scrapple.
There we go. I miss Scrapple.
No, you don't.
I miss it.
You don't. You don't. I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, thanks, Coach. Appreciate the time.
Take care, Jason. Thanks so much for having me.
The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Clothing. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. Hey, you know what? Did you like the show? You want to hit that subscribe button? MadTalkOnline.com/listen. Various different ways to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcatcher of choice. And if you're already subscribed, you already listened, and you love the show, and you want to support this show and this network, MadTalkOnline.com/join the team. Become a team member today.